Alright. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the event of Coffee Talk titled Seeing the Unseen Enemies, the Crucial Role of Whistleblowers in Detecting and Preventing Cyber Fraud. Now, this Coffee Talk is jointly organized by eCopy, CRMS, and also ACFE in commemoration of International Fraud Awareness Week. And this talk show will also be live streamed in the CRMS YouTube channel. Now, first of all, I would like to greet all those who have attended this event on this nice afternoon, as well as Mr. Ridwan Hendra as the chairman of Institute of Compliance Professional Indonesia, and Mr. Haris Marpaung as the vice chairman. Now, let us not forget to say hello to our resource speakers today, which is Mr. Gautama and Miss Esther Rosling. All right. Now, ladies and gentlemen, before we start the coffee talk, let's get to the ground rules, which will be displayed on your following screen. Now, during discussions, you cannot unmute your mic. And if you have questions during the discussion, you can put it later on the Q&A box or raise your hand during the Q&A session. Now, I'll be informing you a little about the rundown of today's coffee talk. We will begin on the opening from Mr. Antonius Alijoyo, and then we will continue the presentation and discussion from Miss Esther and Mr. Gautama. After that, we will have the Q&A session and photo closing session. All right. Now, before we start, let's all hear the opening speech from Mr. Antonius Alijoyo as the founder and principal of CRMS Indonesia. I would like to welcome him. Please, Mr. Anton.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcoming you all to this webinar titled as follows: The Crucial Role of Whistleblowers in Detecting and Preventing Cyber Fraud, Seeing the Unseen Enemies, hosted by the Institute of Compliance Professional Indonesia, or shortly ICOPI, as a part of the series of ICOPI Coffee Talk. Allow me to introduce myself as the chairperson of Supervisory Board of ICOPI. And allow me to say thank you to all the audience who actually allocate your time to come and participate in the webinar, and of course, to the host and the resource speaker, especially Ms. Esther Roslin, the expert in the anti-fraud and very active to help the ICOPI actually promotes an awareness of anti-fraud fighting spirit by introducing and promoting many best practices, including how to balance the whistleblower in combating the cyber fraud and cyber crime. And of course, and the panelists or the speaker, the other speaker, I am Mr. Gautama Bhaktia, the IT Advisory Director of Land Control Indonesia. Thank you, sir, for your help to support this particular webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me just to share a piece of thought why this webinar actually brought to table today. You and me know that actually technology is something that we can deny, but very helpful and the need and mandatory for us today in doing many things, yeah, from the basis, the government, and even in our daily life. However, technology can basically something that can be used for the good things, but also can be used for the bad thing. Yeah. The technology itself is neither one. It is not bad nor good. Yeah, it is not inherently harmful, not harmful. Yeah. Being merely is a tool, its existence also given birth in this last amount of time. Now, when we talk about the whistleblower on the other side, we know that the good faith of whistleblower are usually in precarious position, actually vulnerable to fears, pressures, and even various reprisals. How good, in this case, the good faith whistleblowers are able to strip off the secrecy of cyber criminals, and yet how they are also able to be sufficiently protected when doing so. So, in this case, should indeed become an important topic today, discussed among anti-fraud writers and compliance professionals around the world. That's why it's worth for us then to have the discussion today with the topic today, with the resource speakers, and also the host of the Institute of Compliance Professional in Asia. I do hope that we are going to enjoy the topics today, which are at least divided by the following. One, we are going to be refreshed with some recent cyber fraud cases, not only Indonesia, but this region and worldwide. Second, the role of whistleblowers in the cybersecurity. And then the challenges in protecting good faith whistleblowers. And of course, then the final session, the final part of the discussion is going to be emphasized on the practical strategies in preventing and detecting cyber fraud itself, and then in establishing an ethical whistleblowing system to bring about what actually the expected good outcome of the system in our corporate life, especially. Now, and also organization like to the a certain extent the governance, yeah, the governments, and also then the non-profit organization, and again the corporation environment. Now, allow me to close this opening by again thank you to the audience. Enjoy the webinar. Thank you again to eCopy, headed by Mr. Ridwan Hendra and Haris Marpao, and then to the resource speaker, Tama Bakhtiar, and the last but the most important one, Esther Rosalind. Thank you so much for your help and participate and support to the body. Thank you. Let's enjoy the webinar. Good day.
All right, thank you so much, Pak Antonius Alijoy, for your welcoming speech. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we will enter the coffee talk, in which I will introduce you all first to the speaker and our moderator today, Miss Esther Rosaline. All right, I will read a little bit about her. She has the background of education in the Master of Arts in Applied Criminal Justice and Criminology, as well as a Bachelor of Law in Pelita Harapan University as a magna cum laude. During her career, she has advised, consulted, assisted, led projects, and giving trainings regarding anti-fraud techniques, GRC, data science, and many more. She has been a speaker in various seminars and international conferences, including a guest speaker in the Association of a Certified Fraud Examiners, Washington, D.C., and ACFE, conference in Asia Pacific. Among that, there are many other magnificent achievements she had. Now to the second speaker. There is Mr. Gautama Bhatiar, who has the background in management and cybersecurity, as well as other executive education, focusing on financial risk management and cybersecurity. Now, he has been in the industry for more than 25 years with an in-depth exposure in IT governance, risk compliance, cybersecurity, digital forensics, and data privacy. He has been certified in many different institutes from the OCEG, EC, ISAPA, and a lot others, as well as a professional organization and fellowship including the Global Advisory Board for CISO and CPAND, EC Council Fellow, Financial Service Institute of Australia, and a lot others that are very inspiring to all of us. Now, without further ado, we will start the coffee talk, and I will give the floor to Miss Esther Rosalind. Please, Miss Esther.
Thank you so much, Safina, for hosting our webinar. Is my voice clear?
Yes, but it's a little bit small.
Okay. Hope this time is clearer now. I hope everybody can hear my voice. Okay, thank you so much, Safina, for your support and for opening our event. And thank you so much for Mr. Antonius Alijoyo for the very amazing opening speech. And it is my pleasure to be able to host the webinar today. And I would like also to say thank you to ICOPI leaders and CRMS leaders, including Mr. Haris Marpawung, Mr. Ivan Irawan, Mr. Ridwan. And I would like also to thank every audience today who has taken the time to join our webinar. It is my great hope that today's webinar can actually bring a lot of benefit to all of us today, and the discussion would be as robust as possible, and we will be able to touch a lot of topics that we intend to touch. And although we have a very limited time, I hope today we can actually maximize as much time as possible to discuss as many issues as we could. Please allow me to introduce myself. I'm Esther Rosalind, and here with me is Mr. Gautama Bhatiar. Thank you, Mr. Gautama Bhatiar, for your time today.
Yeah, thank you, Esther, and thank you, everyone, for your time and attendance. Good day, blessing to all of us. Looking forward for sharing and discussing cyber fraud in relation to whistleblowers.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gautama Bhatiar. So welcome to our online coffee talk today. We have the topic today is Seeing the Unseen Enemies, the crucial role of whistleblowers in detecting and preventing cyber fraud. And as we have already informed before, the coffee talk today is held in participation of the ACFE's International Fraud Awareness Week 2024. It's part of the global effort to minimize the impact of fraud by promoting anti-fraud awareness and in education. So we are very grateful to be able to meet online with all the participants today, and we will now start our discussion. So these are some of the topics of discussion that we will cover. We will make it as conversational as possible because it's going to be a coffee talk. But we will help a bit of guide the participants to follow our discussions. So these are some of the topics that we will cover. First, we'll discuss about some recent cyber fraud cases. We'll actually raise a global case, and also we'll talk a bit of Indonesian cases that we probably have encountered in our everyday life. And also we will talk about the significance and some of the lessons learned that we can actually glean from the cases. And then we'll talk about the role of whistleblowers and how to prevent and detect cyber fraud, and what are some of the key takeaways that we can go home with to actually implement in our organizations. So we know that technology is really on the rise. I think everybody has been and has already used technology in one way or another. At least we have our devices, we are using our phones, we are using our laptops. And as much as technology becoming a constant factor in almost everyone's life, actually it has already become also an opportunity for fraudsters to figure out how to exploit our technologies for their gain. We have heard about some of the most scandalous cyber fraud cases in 2024, for example. And so we will open with one of the very huge fraud case that has actually become a lot of fraud fighters around the world aware of, and it becomes a really great attention for many fraud fighters around the world. It's about a cyber fraud case, or we call it the Change Healthcare story. So, Mr. Gautama Bhatiar, would you do the favor? Would you do us a favor to actually walk us through the story for us?
Okay, thank you, Esther. So basically, the cyber fraud case in this session we brought into the table is the story of the Change Healthcare. It's an American or US company. Um, the holding company is called a one of the largest health payment processors in the world. So they encounter cyber fraud cases in early this year. So the first cyber attack is actually ransomware, in which it was detected on February 21st. So um, the organizations detected the attack, the intrusions to be precise, and then they decided to disconnect it and shut down their systems as well as their networks in order to investigate what is the causes, particularly the root cause. The attack was carried out by a ransomware group. It's called ALP, or widely known as Black Hat. It's one of the most active ransom group um, uh, in the global context. They have performed many attacks to the several organizations and corporations, and then they the Black Hat unfortunately gained an unauthorized access to the company's network for around 4 days. And then this is the main reason behind this attack was on the remote access service. The service which is usually or the service which is usually open for other devices to connect other devices, in which usually it is a server. Um, and so the attacker exploited vulnerability in the separate remote access. The main reason, the major cause or the main cause is quite simple from the technical point of view, because they didn't implement what we call as a multi-factor authentications. It's a authentication with usually it should be more than one factor. And so the key findings from the investigations include that the attacker stole around 6 terabytes of the data before uh, they encrypted the computer network. And then the second attack was carried out by a ransom hack. So it's another gang, it's another group which has the affiliations with the Black Cat. And then the the ransom hack gang also demanded a ransom payment because they do the attack with the ransomware technique. And then the ransom hub threatened to publish or sell the stolen data, well, actually data that they copied, if their demands were not met. And in order to prove that their attack was real, the group, Ransom Hub, published a portion of the stolen files as the proof of their threat. Um, so the key findings of the second attack was that the scope of the breach, it is um, it affected up to 100 million individuals. Most of them, majority of them are Americans, making it one of the largest healthcare data breaches in recent years. So basically, the data the types of data compromised was including names, addresses, birth dates, social security numbers, health insurance details, medical records, and as well as financial information. So, and then the other key findings from the second attack was that the security vulnerabilities, which actually the subsequent attack uh, was occurred after the initial attack. And then the financial impact, the United Health Group, in which they are the holding company of the Change Healthcare. The holding company estimated the total cost of cyber attacks to be around 2.45 billion for the 9 months until September 30th. And then the side effect, according to American Hospital Association, that survey around 1,000 hospitals, 60% of reported revenue loss of around 1 million US dollars per day. And in Massachusetts, in one of the state in the US, the healthcare system lost approximately 24.2 million daily due to the hacks. And from the operational point of view, the healthcare system disruption, because the Change Healthcare is the payment processor providers for around 5 million hospitals nationwide in the US. The attack affected the claim processing, pharmacy operations, and as well as patient care. In terms of the financial aspect, specifically ransom payments, United Health Group admitted that they paid one ransom demand of 22 million US dollars. Although there was an indication that this group, United Health, also made a second payment to the group Ransom Hub, but it's rumor because the group doesn't publicly reveal that they pay a certain amount of US dollars for the ransom perusal. So these are two attacks occurred that was Change Healthcare experienced with. This is I think the biggest cyber attack, cyber fraud cases globally, which was highlighted by one of the ACFE publications. I think that's the walkthrough from my end, Esther.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gautam Bahtiar. It was a very intriguing case indeed. Especially, I noticed that when data breach was being mentioned, because we do know that data breach could lead to identity theft or even similar crimes where the consumers or individual data owners could have their private identifying information being illicitly used by fraudsters in a way that harms their data owners. Because I think I remember Indonesia itself, Mr. Gautam Bahtiar, there are a lot of cases that we have heard on the news about how consumers suddenly lost their money in their accounts, or because apparently their personal information was known to the fraudsters. I remember there was a study, I saw a study by FICO, it was published in 2024. It says that identity theft remains the predominant worry among Indonesians, because it has exposed individuals to various risks, including but not limited to financial loss. Now, so I think this is a very intriguing case because data breach, when everybody has contributed our data in one way or another to a lot of corporations. So, Mr. Gautama Bhattacharya, what do you think is the significance of this Change Healthcare case? Because it must not be just in the US. I believe that it has already happened also in Indonesia and many parts of the world. What do you think some of the lessons that we could learn from this case, should they or could they have been detected much earlier? Or yeah, yes, how actually to do so? How could we have detected this kind of fraud cases much earlier?
Okay, interesting questions. I think it's a common questions which is raised by all of us. We know that um the attacker as well as the fraudster, cyber attacker and cyber fraudster, um day in day out over the past 2 decades, they form a lot of if I'm not saying tons of group. They form a gang and then they collaborate between each other, sharing techniques, procedures, as well as um, modus operandi in order to intrude particular systems or even more target specific organization. Um, these organizations, these gangs are um, are targeting organization globally. Uh, Specific for the change healthcare cases, I think we can see that what you have previously told, that the data is particularly the personal data. To be very specific, the username and password is very crucial, very extremely crucial. And so all of us, not only organizations, need to protect our personal data and informations, um, whether it's a username, user account, and password, as well as other kind of sensitive information, store it or save it safely, because this personal data, specifically username and password, is the key point or the main entry in which most of, if not majority of the attackers um, targeting their victims at. Um, they usually look for username, user account, and password as part of their identity theft techniques. Um, After they obtain the specific username and password, they can penetrate any kind of systems, right? Particularly those username and password that have a privileged level of access, like a super users or administrators, and so on and so forth. Um, so back to the Change Healthcare system case, I think the key lesson learned is basic security controls are a must-have, because the attacker exploited lack of multi-factor authentications, um, highlighting the importance of implementing fundamental security measures. Maybe this sounds like a basic, what do you call, basic actions to be rolled out. But as we know that organizations have tons of systems, maybe if we look at ourselves, at our company that we are working for, um, they have 20, 30, even 100, even one of the largest bank in Indonesia. They said that they have in total 1,000 systems, inclusive of core system and non-core system or supporting systems. Um, so due to having many systems, many devices, many users, uh, some of some of the organizations sometimes miss or skip or even overlook these basic security controls. Second one is incident response plan. It's very crucial. I mean, in the sense of uh, the organizations have to have their incident response plan in place. So whenever the incident or the attack or the fraud occurs, then they know what to do. They know what the processes that they need to perform, what are the organizations they need to reach out, asking for help as necessary and as needed. Um, so for the third one, supply chain risk. Um, this is uh we can say that this is a newly or emerging risk because the incident um, can come from our vendors, suppliers, distributors, principals, business organizations, even our parent organization. The fourth one is ransom payment risk. Um, if we look at the ransomware attack that occur globally, not only in Indonesia, there is always a ransom payment risk in which the organization, the victimized organization, pay the ransom fee, um, and then at the end of the day, I think the bet will be like 50-50 because um, upon receiving the payment, the attacker can give the key, the private key, in this case, in order to open the encrypted data and so on and so forth. Uh, and then the fifth one is need for regulatory action. So the attacks have prompted calls for mandated baseline cybersecurity standards in healthcare sector. I mean, in this case, the U.S. government, I think, in the midst of considering whether to enhancing their cybersecurity standards, cybersecurity frameworks that the U.S. organizations need to comply themselves with, because the cybersecurity, cyber fraud is evolving, right? The standards and the framework is not a one-time implementations. It needs to be updated, enhanced, and then regularly reviewed, regularly audited, and it should be updated as necessary and as needed. I think the last one, the key lesson learned is the importance of cyber security investment. Um, so the massive financial impact that we have seen in the previous slide, um, it's a massive amount of money, right? That the holding company, the health group, paid several amount of money, and so the massive financial impact underscores the need for organizations to prioritize and adequately fund cyber security efforts, because cyber security is, from the management point of view, from the committee point of view, and for other parties out there, cybersecurity is a cost. It's an insurance basically. We pay for the premium in which we pray as it progresses that the cyber attack or even cyber fraud will never happen, right? Uh, and so the cybersecurity process in many organizations globally, not only in Indonesia, I think the cybersecurity folks, whatever he or she or their job title is, needs to convince the management to give them the support specifically for the financial point of view. I think that's the key lesson learned that we can talk about. Um, specifically in the Change Healthcare
Thank you so much,
cases.
Bahtiar. I think it was a a lot of good points that I noticed in what you said earlier, especially when it comes to investment. Because many people have been, probably a lot of people we found, our clients and everyone, a lot of people have been asking, like, why do we have to invest in cybersecurity? Is it really a big deal? Is it really on the rise? But then suddenly we found like an avalanche of a lot of cases, some fraud cases, and suddenly we found out that our data has been sold somewhere, but we don't exactly know how much of our data has been stolen and has been breached. And then, sometimes, especially finding root cause is not really an easy task, right? And I think when you said about investment, I think it's something that we all have to understand. Like, how much do we have to invest in that cybersecurity? Do I have to invest now or later? And to what degree? And what's actually where are our vulnerabilities? And I think it comes to your next slide, Mr. Gautam Bhatia. Like, what are some of the prevention aspects that we should have noticed from this case, from this healthcare case, that this is not just an American thing. It's not just about, it's just not happening in other parts of the world. It's happening everywhere. It's happening in Indonesia, it's happening in other parts of the world. And when it comes to cyber fraud, it's something it's a crime that knows no borders. As in, it's happening. We don't even know where they are. We don't even know who is committing the fraud, whether it's in our country or whether it's in another country. But yet they could take a lot of financially speaking, or they could harm financially or emotionally or even physically, probably some victims that could be the victims of cyber fraud. So what do you think would be some of the prevention detection aspects that we could have learned from this healthcare case?
Okay, so I think the shifting of the paradigm or approach, like 2 decades ago, 3 decades ago, or even 1 decade ago, the mindset or the paradigm is reactive. But now I think with more and more cyber incidents, cyber attacks, cyber fraud, um, we need to shift from the reactive to more proactive approach. And so that's why the implementations of robust monitoring is crucial. I mean, in the sense of the organization need to deploy a threat detection systems, um, in which the system will try to detect the threat. So it's not um, it's not yet the attack, but threat will be detected by implementing certain systems, and then the monitoring should be 24 by 7 by 365. Uh, Specifically for those organizations, whether they are coming from private or public sectors that heavily rely on certain systems, like the core system, or specifically or particularly for the core systems. That's the first one. And second one, enhance access controls. Um, so strong authentication measures, inclusive of multi-factor authentications is is a must-have. Um, and then the access controls that we need to have a look at, it should be implemented both. I mean, both sides should be covered. Not only external users, for instance, our customers, our suppliers, our vendors, and so on and so forth. But also these access controls should be deployed very carefully for our internal users as well, our employees, our interns, and many more. Third one, it is a regular security assessments, because um, this is important because cyber security is evolving day in, day out. Over the past few months, we have seen a lot of AI usage, artificial intelligence. The attacker using utilize or use AI tool and applications in order to attack certain organizations. And so the regular security assessment should be brought into the spotlight because um, once again the cybersecurity is evolving. Therefore, conduct a vulnerability assessment and a penetration testing to identify and address security weaknesses or vulnerabilities. The fourth one will be improved threat intelligence. The threat is also cyber threat is also evolving in many forms. In they are found in many. We call it as the attack factors and attack surfaces. So that's why the improvement of threat intelligence is also important. The fifth one will be employee training and awareness. Um, One of the interesting points, if we have a look at studies, report, publications, research, that the human is the weakest link in cybersecurity. Uh, so most of the, I think, governments say around 62% of cybersecurity incidents and attacks are due to human error. And so that's why the employee training, the organization should roll out the employee training on a regular basis. Um, let's start with the simple one. What is the cybersecurity? What are the risks? What is the threat? What is the attack? And then they can continue with the cybersecurity best practices and how to, more importantly, how to identify potential threats because the threats is also evolving. The attacker know that since that human is the weakest link in or weakest element in cybersecurity, most of them utilize a technique what we call as social engineering. So they use the social psychological factors in order um, to deceive the victims and then perform several techniques in order to gain a financial to have a financial gain. The sixth one will be third party risk management. So our organizations, our third party from our organizations, like business partners, suppliers, regulators, and so on and so forth. Um, we need to implement a rigorous security assessment for the vendors and partners um, to ensure that they have what do you call they have security controls in place, same like us. Um, and so that's the main point. And then the seventh one is enhanced network segmentations. This is a technical one in which the our organization network should be divided into several logical networks in order for if the attacker attack our network, it should be the attack will be isolated only for that kind of specific logical network. And then the last one will be adopt a zero trust architecture. This is a new concept come into play over the past 3 years. The principle is never trust, always verify. And so whoever the users, whether they coming from our internal organizations or even outsiders, they need to be verified. They need to be validated. This is to ensure that, like me and yourself, if you access my company network from my organization, my office, even though we are in the same organization, you need to be your account need to be verified from time to time. So that's why the zero trust architecture. Um, they have a principle called never trust, always verify. I think that's the um, several notable prevention and detection aspects, not only applied for Change Healthcare case, but can be applied anywhere else.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gautama Bhatia. It was a very interesting, very inspiring notes about how to prevent and detect. I noticed you mentioned about human is the weakest link in cybersecurity. And let's talk a bit about that, because if human is the weakest link in cybersecurity, then our question should be then how to make human, instead of as the weakest link, how do we empower them to be one of the strongest links or one of the role that can actually push the cybersecurity forward? And this is going to be our next discussion, Mr. Gautam Bhatia, which is the role of whistleblowers. After we empower them, how do we empower this our employees? You mentioned also even interns and our third parties. This kind of individuals, this kind of personnel, which are related, whether within organization or they're related as in third parties from external parties of organization, they can be empowered instead of being just the weakest link. How to actually make them as one of the dynamics, how to push forward the cybersecurity in our organizations. So we will now, this is going to be our main discussion today, which is what is the role of whistleblowers? How can we empower whistleblowers to actually become one of the aspect, the program that actually help enhance our cybersecurity and even sharpen our capability in actually detecting and preventing cyber fraud. So we know that to begin with, let's just start with what's the definition of whistleblowers, because there are a lot of definitions out there about what whistleblower is, who can be whistleblowers, and in it itself, the definition itself could actually be a subject of debate, and a lot of people actually debate about it and what actually constitutes whistleblowers. But let me just quote a bit from Transparency International's best practice guide. Transparency International chooses a broad definition of whistleblowing, and for them, whistleblowing is actually the disclosure of reporting of wrongdoing, including but not limited to corruption, criminal offenses, breaches of legal obligation, miscarriages of justice, specific dangers to public health, safety, or the environment, and abuse of authority, unauthorized use of public funds or property, gross waste of mismanagement, and even conflict of interest, and any acts to cover up any of this. So that's the definition of whistleblowing from Transparency International. Well, the ACFN and IIA report, they made actually a definition of whistleblower hotline program. They defined it as a program consisting of one or more mechanisms or initiatives designed to encourage and collect reports from parties with information about potential wrongdoing or misconduct. Well, these parties, ACFE and IA and also Transparency International, they agree on one thing, just like Mr. Gautama Bhatia mentioned earlier. We should not limit that parties as just our employees, but how about those who are not yet our employees, those who are probably to be our employees, those people who apply for our jobs, and then even those who are our interns, or even those who are not legal employees, as in they probably could be like an expert, an affiliate to our company, or they could be even our consultants. So any parties that relate to our organization, they should be able to access this whistleblower hotline program, and they should be covered by our program. So definitely the benefits of whistleblower hotline programs are a lot of benefits that we can actually get from whistleblower hotline program. However, there are actually, according to the report by ACF and IAA, although many organizations around the world do at least have some kind of whistleblowing system or whistleblower hotline program or whistleblowing mechanism, whatever they call it, Nevertheless, according to the report by ACF and IAA, they noted that at least hundreds of organizations still do not have a whistleblower hotline program. And one of the main reasons is that they lack awareness for the need of whistleblowers. And here we have to a little bit highlight the role of whistleblowers. And one of the highlights should be that, as Mr. Gautama Bhattacharya has mentioned earlier, that the human is the weakest link of cybersecurity. So how do we actually make humans, instead of the weakest link, they can actually be empowered to push our cybersecurity forward? And so this is actually budget is not the reason. The report says budget, and it's never the issue for organizations to not have a whistleblowing program, which is interesting because apparently it was never. It could be one of the reasons, but it was not the main. Not many respondents did actually say that budget was one of the major constraints. So, but then they do address things like issue of how about small or immature organizations. So basically, mainly the biggest constraints to not having a whistleblower hotline program is actually lack of awareness, because they feel that their organizations are small, they're not mature yet, so they think that although budget could be one of the issues, but one of the main issues that what's the use of whistleblowers? Why do we need a whistleblowing system? Now, to start, we have to be aware of the ACFE report to nations. Even in 2024, the report made note that 43% of frauds were detected by whistleblower tips, which is more than 3 times as many cases as the next most common method, which is internal audit. And I remember I watched a webinar on ICFP website. It was by Cynthia Cooper. We know Cynthia Cooper as one of the, it was the WorldCom's whistleblower. And in her book, she wrote about the journey of whistleblowers. And Cynthia Cooper did mention that when leaders are involved, it means collusion happens. That is, you have people working together at the top positions. And so most of your basic internal controls are not going to prevent that. Which is interesting what Cynthia Cooper noted, which actually highlights even more the role of whistleblowers. And in a corporate structure, especially in the corporate hierarchical structure, it is very crucial to ensure that all voices must be heard, including those at the lowest level of the hierarchy, and including those who are even not our employees yet, for example. And whistleblowing system is a really vital channel that ideally speaking, is designed in a very special way to actively encourage everyone in the organization, even third parties who are related to our organization, to report and speak up about anything, no matter who they are and no matter what the report is about. And this can bring definitely a lot of benefits to the organization as a whole. First of all, if the reports are found, for example, not related to fraud, I found a lot of cases. My clients and organizations that I've encountered, many people complain saying that, oh, my whistleblowing system is not working. Why is that? Because a lot of reports that I got is not related to fraud. They're not related to fraud. They're just, some kind of complaints, like there are a lot of fightings between employees, or a bit of jealousy between the employees. So it was not related to fraud. And many organizations felt that it means that their program is not working. The whistleblower system is not working. There's nothing that we actually can get from that, because most of the reports are not related to fraud. But actually, it's mistaken to think that just because the reports that we found are seemingly not related to fraud, that means our program is not necessary or is not working. Because every single whistleblower report actually does help us understand about what is going on in the organization. It can be culture, it can be, for example, like there's a certain grudge or there's a dissatisfaction among employees. It is important, and perhaps when we talk about business, it's also profitable to every business to know what is going on among their team members, whether they're still on the same page, whether they're still aligned in terms of vision, mission, and values with what the organization wants to encourage, and also whether actually they're posing certain risk that must be acted upon as quickly as possible. So in this manner, monitoring and maintaining compliance will also be greatly supported by our hotline system. Well, quoting, there was OSEC's practical handbook on hotlines and helplines. OSEC does mention about how an agile hotline or whistleblower system and helpline system can actually enable the organization to more effectively and efficiently prevent, detect, and respond to similar misfeasance or malfeasance in the future. So our whistleblowing hotline program that is accommodating multiple avenues of reporting, including every direct report to the supervisors or legal team, if we properly manage it, integrate it, document it, analyze it, this can be one of the sources of a very insightful data that we can transform it into actionable information that can help the organization's decision-making process. And ultimately, regardless of whether there are monetary profits, so to speak, that can be received, acquired by their business, but to set aside the monetary profits, whistleblowing system, because of its ideal inherent design to empower even the lower level employees and third parties is truly, we can call it as like the gold standard that no organization could afford to overlook in promoting fairness, transparency, ethics, integrity, and accountability within the organization and beyond. Now, as has been discussed, we have discussed earlier, cyber fraud can negatively affect not just companies, not just corporations, but also a great number of individuals, especially the customers, the consumers, just like the case we discussed earlier, millions of consumers' data were stolen. So these people, all of us, we must have provided our personal data to a certain network. And we all of us who actually have provided our data to a certain network, we could become victims of data breaches without even knowing anything about it. And I'm going to take a bit of data. It is very chilling to know that there was a data published on Statista that during the third quarter of 2024 alone, data breaches have exposed more than 422 million records worldwide. And these data breaches may not just adversely impact the corporations whose network has been illicitly accessed, but also, and perhaps more importantly, the individual consumers or customers, these owners of the sensitive data themselves. Because every sensitive data leakage could lead to identity theft or similar crime and exposing individuals to severe harm, physically, financially. And the problem is whether these individuals are always able to know or get notified when some or all of their data has been compromised is unfortunately an issue of accountability rather than an absolute certainty. Apparently, although technology can be implemented to help enhance transparency, it can also become a very brilliant tool to allow certain things to go on very secretly. Because companies may try to cover their cybersecurity incidents and keep them private for monetary or profit considerations. Here, whistleblowers can play a significant role in revealing if there are any potential or actual security compromises and whether security steps should be done immediately. However, their role in keeping companies accountable does not stop there. What would you say about the role of whistleblowers in pushing cybersecurity forward, Mr. Gautama Bhatia?
Yeah, I think I would like to start with the cyber attack, the actor of cyber attack, which occurred globally, not only in Indonesia. In Indonesia, 62, not 62. I think for 58%, the research is comes from IDC or Gartner. If my memory serves me right, 58% of the actors are insiders, and so the role of blowers in cybersecurity is extremely important, uh, because most of the actors are insiders, and so the role of whistleblowers, in this case, the employees in the organizations can report if there's any abnormalities in the attacker actions or potential actions. In detail, the role of whistleblowers, I think, quite broad in the sense of they can help the organizations accountable for complying with cybersecurity laws and regulations. Um, the reason behind this um, is because cybersecurity vulnerabilities are usually are usually often overlooked, or even some of the vulnerabilities, the flaws are cannot be seen explicitly, and so I think the whistleblowers can expose instances where organizations fail to implement proper security measures, or attempt to hide data breaches. Second one, if the whistleblowers have adequate IT literacy or security literacy, he or she or they might have heard about the latest or recent updates, or even more, he or she or they um, they might have a professional background in IT or information security. They can highlight the security gaps. They can bring attentions to the shortcomings within organizations, for the organization to detect and addressing vulnerabilities before they cause more significant damage. Thirdly, I think the whistleblowers uh, can raise the security standards to certain extent, because organizations, when they achieve several standards, they also have what we call as comfort zone. So basically, comfort zone doesn't occur in we as the human level, but also in organization level. Some of the organizations have what we call a principle of, if if the organization is normal, if something is normal, something is good, don't fix it, don't improve it, don't enhance it. And so, raising security standards, again, we can extrapolate that kind of ways of thinking to raise the security standards. Okay, next, I think we have more than this, Esther.
Yes.
Protecting public interest. So um, this is very important in the sense of, um, the whistleblowers can act out as a sense of responsibility to protect individuals and society, um, and then catalyzing change. So the whistleblowers, in a very ideal way, they can act as what do you call uh yeah a change, a change of champion. They can lead to increased scrutiny from regulatory bodies and from their organizations to reassess and improve their cyber security strategies. Even more, they can also serve as the early warning safety valve, if possible. Um, and the last one is addressing emerging threats. I think they can help also the IT folks within their organizations. If there is any security challenges, they can address it. They can give minor input, or even micro input, or even um, give the input through the whistleblowing systems that their organizations have implemented too. I think these are the role of whistleblowers in the cyber security spaces, um, that I can reveal to the audience.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Gautam Bhatia. Those are really interesting points. Perhaps we will think about, because we have mentioned about how whistleblowers do have critical role in cybersecurity. Unfortunately, as critical as they are to cybersecurity, we know that whistleblowers often do face a lot of challenges and are exposed to a lot of uncertainties, extreme fear, anxiety, and even potential reprisals. So we're going to be a little bit looking into the challenges. I'm just going to quote a very heartbreaking statement. It's a statement in the Government Accountability Project report by Tom Devine in 2015. It was a report titled International Best Practices for Whistleblower Policies. It says that while whistleblower protection laws are increasingly popular, in many cases the rights have been largely symbolic and therefore counterproductive. Employees have risked retaliation, thinking that they had genuine protection, when in reality there was no realistic chance that they could actually maintain their careers. In those instances, acting on rights contained in whistleblower laws has meant the near certainty that a legal firm would formally endorse the retaliation, leaving the careers of reprisal victims far more prejudiced than if no whistleblower protection law had been in place at all. So there's some challenges can happen because we have to a bit of thinking about first the structure, because the structure of almost every organization, even the hierarchical structure, or even a simple system of a leader subordinate structure, it has meant that the leader, or in a corporate setting, the top management would be the ultimate user or the key manager responsible for the whistleblower hotline program, which means that in many organizations, the top management does have the authority or official right to decide on what should or should not be done upon every whistleblower's report, or at the very least, they would be able to access the compilation of all whistleblowers' reports. This kind of structure is not necessarily or inherently a bad thing. However, it can be one of the factors that actually lead to employees perhaps distrusting the hotline system when the reports are concerning their own top leaders of the organization. This is why the ACFA and IA report in 2023 on whistleblowers noted that perceived hotline program effectiveness is substantially higher when the organization leaders themselves provided targeted messaging that expresses zero tolerance for retaliation. And the same report also mentioned that hotlines are perceived more effective when they are either entirely or partially administered by an external third party, which is interesting because although when administered by an external third party, usually the oversight of the hotline program will be still controlled by the organization internally. But it turns out that the sense of being able to slightly go outside of the internal hierarchy, it appears to be quite comforting for many whistleblowers. And then we also have other challenges such as legal advices, although, well, we all encourage whistleblowers to always access the legal advices before speaking up. But whether they actually can access good legal advices, it's still an inaccessible luxury for so many people, or simply out of reach because of lack of knowledge. And emotional distress that whistleblowers have and often experience can also adversely impact their positions, because on one hand, they would be expected and even demanded to provide reliable and accurate facts that are not embellished in any way. But according to scientific research, we have learned that one of the scientific research that I read, it was from Kasra Moazami, was published on Stress and Health Journal in 2021. The research found that the greater psychological distress is associated with cognitive impairment in adults, which means that it is not impossible that some of the whistleblowers' memories might be impacted or altered in some way when they are under emotional distress. And last but not least, that given all the challenges and risks to which whistleblowers are significantly exposed, whistleblowers do rely a lot on the confidentiality and anonymity mechanism that most hotline programs offer. However, as implies it seems, confidentiality and anonymity may not be a firm and absolute protection for whistleblowers in many occasions. Because first, being anonymous means it would be hard for the recipient of the report to follow up to discuss with the whistleblowers about the given information for investigation purposes. Thus, there is a risk that the case would be difficult to be substantiated. But additionally, in order to ask for protection, usually, or to prove retaliation or reprisals have occurred because of the report, in many cases, it would require for the whistleblowers to actually disclose their identities. In other cases, confidentiality of whistleblowers is not absolute, because some pieces of the report information might actually allow people to identify or trace back to the whistleblower. And that information, on the other hand, actually may need to be revealed to other personnel during the investigation process. So in any event, being anonymous does not always sufficiently protect whistleblowers, and their confidentiality may not always be absolute. This definitely a tricky challenge that we face in all kinds of organizations. How about if we start, Mr. Gautam Bhatter, with first the cyber security, preventing and detecting cyber fraud. What is the big strategy of cyber security? How the role of whistleblower fits into the picture, and what would be the best strategy to detect and prevent fraud? And if I may, I would like to, yeah, maybe we can start with that first before we proceed further. How do we get a picture of us preventing and detecting cyber fraud at large? What do you think about this?
Okay, thank you, Esther. So, yeah, I think because once again, the technology is evolving, security is evolving from computer security, IT security, information security, and now it's all about the cybersecurity. And so, in addition to that, the utilizations of advanced technology is also day in, day out. Many organizations have implemented advanced technology for their business processes, operational activities, and so on and so forth. And so I think from the moment on, even over the past 2 or 3 years, I think the advanced technology implementation should be taken into account. In this case, the machine learning and AI. So machine learning and AI is it's like it's like a knife, right? It's a tool. It can be utilized for a positive purpose and vice versa. So machine learning and AI, I think it should be implemented in organizations in order to detecting anomalies, not only uh, not only threats but also anomalies and abnormalities and patterns. Whether these anomalies or abnormalities are fraud or not, it will be surely and obviously it needs to be reassessed because by implementing this kind of tool or applications, most of the time these tools will generate what we call as false positive result, and so we need to have a look at uh, the anomalies and abnormalities, whether uh, those are fraudulent activities or not. But it's a good starting point because AI is utilized not only for positive purpose but also for hacking, cracking, and performing the cyber attack as well. Second one goes to continuous monitoring. It's 24 by 7 by 365 monitoring of transactions and more importantly user behavior on the first line of defense. So continuous monitoring, it will be very helpful because it is performed in or on the first line of defense. I mean, it will be very useful and helpful for the intra audit as the third line of defense, and obviously it will be very helpful for the government, the regulator, as well as the external auditors. A second point is data encryption and secure communication. So we have to ensure all sensitive data, inclusive of personal data, is encrypted, starting from the personal data input or creation, um, personal data when it is stored or saved, processed, um, transfer, even archive, and even more when the data is deleted. So we have to ensure that all sensitive data is encrypted in entire life cycle of the data itself. Furthermore, we need to use the secure communications protocols, um, um, whether the connections is wire or even more wireless connection. Um, Regular security audits and updates. Uh, we need to perform the security audit and keep all systems and software up to date with the latest security patches. So, technically speaking, security patches uh, is what we call an update in which there is a security vulnerabilities that have been identified. So you guys knows, right? When a system is launched, um, technically speaking, there is what we call as potential bug within that system or within that applications. Um, there are thousands of bugs, even more, hundred of bugs, thousand of bugs. It's just a matter of time because the system or the applications is developed by human, right? By us, uh, and then it's not perfect. Nothing is 100% secure. Nothing, inclusive of the system or the applications, and so that's why security patches come into the picture. If there is any vulnerability or flaw and it is identified by a good guy, then usually this good guy will inform the principals or the organizations that develop this software or application. And these organizations or applications will develop security patches and then distribute the patches to the public in order for the users to download the patches and then install them within their devices. Fourth one will be like a human element. Yeah, human is the weakest link, and then they can also be actually what we call it, the strongest link, the strongest link. As long as I think cyber security culture needs to be adopted, need to be implemented, need to be built by by us, by the organizations. So cyber security culture. Um, uh, I've I've attended a webinar. I think around 2018. Um, there's a webinar, and FBI folks have spoken in the webinar. They said even FBI is trying at that moment 6 years ago. Is trying to build a cyber security culture within their organization because most of the breaches, most of the attacks, coming from the human activity or human error. So that's the major reasons why they try to build the cyber security culture within their organization. And then the fifth one will be continuous improvement, like the one that I've told previously told that implementing and achieving standards like ISO 27001, ISO, let's say, whether it is 2013 or 2032nd, it's not enough. I think it should be what do you call the improvement should be there. Not necessarily a big one or medium one, a small improvement in the policy, the procedures, as long as they comply with certain international standards or framework. It's good to go. So yeah, I would like also to bring the ISO 27001 2022, which that talks about information security management system into the picture. So this standard is internationally accepted because it is published by international standard organization. Um, they have around this is the newest version. This is the latest version, latest standard. Consists of around 93 security controls, divided into 4 themes, 4 areas. The first one is organizational. Second one goes to people. Third one is physical. And then the last one is technological controls. So um, this standard, the 2022nd standard, have several main focus. The first one is modernized approach, because they have accommodated cloud security, data leakage prevention, content filtering, physical security, and so on and so forth. This standard is very important for the organization to comply with if the organizations would like to ensure that their cybersecurity risks and controls are in place. I think that the last one will be this ISO, instead of not only have 4 main focus, but it's a tool as well for the risk management division, in order to establish what we call as cyber resilience. Cyber attack, experience a cyber attack is not good, truth to be told, right? But cyber resilience is more focusing on after the attack, whether the systems within the victimized organization can restore, can be recovered, and can be fully what do you call fully function, fully run as a normal. So cyber resilience is also an important concept to be looked at, because I think organizations can encounter cyber attack, cyber fraud, but particularly cyber attack. But more important questions is whether the organization systems can be restored, can be fully recovered, and can be fully operated as normal or back to normal. I think that's the main point of the ISO latest standard, ISO 27001 latest version. Esther, over to you then.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gautam Bhattacharya. You mentioned a lot of good points, especially when it comes to the standard, and then also how we have to. I think the main points that I actually got from your presentation was that close oversight and monitoring is the key to actually prevent and detect cyber fraud. And let's us also look at how oversight and monitoring we cannot afford to actually also not have a robust or an effective whistleblower hotline system, because this is how we can actually also enhance our monitoring process and our oversight. Where does the human element come in? How are we actually able to use that technology as well, which we will actually get into deeper during the Q&A session after this. But let us also give our best focus on establishing our hotline program whistleblowing system, just like Mr. Gautam Bhattacharya mentioned, how human element and audits and our oversight focus must actually be enhanced in order to prevent and detect cyber fraud, which is very critical. And so this is also very critical, both for deterring cyber fraud specifically and also every kind of fraud in general, that we also know how to establish the right and the effective hotline program or whistleblowing system or whistleblowing mechanism. And really a lot can be discussed for this matter, but we don't really have time for that. But whistleblower hotline program is actually a truly delicate system that should ideally be carefully tailored and designed by taking into account the organization's needs, context, and culture. But some general ideas do revolve around these three important elements. First is accessibility. Second is metrics and indicators, and the last one is trust. Accessibility is not just about just posting a designated whistleblower email address on our company's website. It's not enough. It is about actively and proactively making sure people actually can use the system, meaning that they do know about the program, they know how to use the system, they understand when to use the system, and when they are having certain doubts, there is an available channel for confidential advice and support, just like I mentioned earlier about legal advice and professional advice. And it involves carefully governing important matters such as what kind of wrongdoings or misconduct shall fall into the scope of reportable information, who can be protected by the system, who should be in charge of the process, what does the timeline look like, how long should the process take place, how many multiple avenues do we need to have, and when can the system be accessed? Is it going to be 24 hours, 7 days a week? Or because all these matters do affect the accessibility of our program. That is whether people are actually encouraged and empowered to access our program. And here I have to highlight about metrics and indicators. These are very highly important to measure the performance of our hotline program and also actually about our cybersecurity management program as a whole. Whether when it comes to a whistleblower, such as whether our whistleblowers have been sufficiently protected and whether the protection is not just a mere lip service, whether every report and disclosure have been properly responded, investigated, how many reports are coming in this year compared to last year or the last 5 years, what are the trends, and why the number of reports is increasing or decreasing. Because these are very important data that we have to analyze and feed into our indicators. Because we cannot improve what we cannot measure, just like Mr. Gautama Bhatia mentioned about improvement. We need to continually improve our cybersecurity, but we cannot measure. We don't know what we do have to improve. So we cannot measure without some consistent and common metrics or indicators. So this is a very important element. And these metrics and indicators must be determined in a very careful way in order to properly and sufficiently reflect the realities of the condition of our program, not obscuring some detail or creating some degree of misinformation. And the perception of employees and other related third parties about our hotline program, our whistleblowing system, is a very necessary measurement of our hotline program because it measures their trust in the system. And without their trust, then no one will be using it. And our hotline program is bound to fail, regardless of how extensive our whistleblowing system, especially our written policies on the book can be, because many organizations do have written policies on whistleblowing, and I think a lot of organizations do already have. But it's not about the written policies; it's about whether people actually trust the system. And gaining trust is what our hotline program should aspire to and be made as the main goal of our whistleblowing system agenda in every organization. And about whistleblower management system, we can refer to this ISO standard 37002 2021, and just less aligned with what we have talked about. The three principles on which the ISO standard bases its guidance are trust, impartiality, and protection. It's a very important thing as well. A very important thing as well is that this ISO adopts a risk-based approach in establishing the scope of whistleblowing system. They reference it to ISO 37301 for compliance risk assessment and ISO 31000 for risk management, which means that the ISO standard for whistleblowing system advises us to design our whistleblowing system by considering and taking into account our own risk data, risk profile, our compliance issues, violations, our metrics and indicators, as how we have talked about. Basically, our needs and our context must be taken into account, and it's a very delicate system. So before we get into our Q&A session, we're just gonna go with our key takeaways first. Cyber fraud is definitely on the rise, and we have seen it. We have felt it. Probably a lot of our relatives have already experienced it. So our vigilance must also be enhanced. And whistleblowers do play a critical role in pushing cybersecurity forward, yet they must be empowered to overcome their significant challenges. And preventing and detecting cyber fraud requires an implementation of effective oversight and control, which also entails establishing a trustworthy and effective whistleblower hotline program. And did you want to add anything to that as your final remark, Mr. Gautama Bhatia?
I think yeah, digital trust it's very crystal clear that digital trust in the sense of trust in digital world, it's like a real life trust. It is something earned, not given, but it should always be verified to ensure its integrity. So that's my final remark, Esther.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gautam Bhatia. I think it was a very impressive presentation, and we are getting a lot of information from Mr. Gautama Bhatia. So I would like to look at the comments from our participants. There are a lot of questions already, and I see some people have already raised hands. Maybe I will start with the first questions from Mr. Nathaniel Webb. Mr. Nathaniel Webb asked, do you have any specific examples of the use of AI in cybercrime attacks against financial sector targets that can be shared? Maybe I will let you address that question first, Mr. Gautama Bhatia.
Yeah, thank you, Esther. Thank you for the questions. Well, actually, we have seen, based on my past experience, we have seen the utilizations of AI and machine learning that being used in several malware. So when my clients and I performed the malware analysis, we found that these two malwares actually have leveraged the AI and machine learning technologies, and so but obviously the attack utilizing the machine learning, AI, even deep learning, um, have to be analyzed first, and then we can detect the utilizations of that kind of technologies within the attack. But if you ask about a global case, I think the leverage or the utilizations of AI by the attacker for cyber fraud or cyber attacks, there are many cases, but not yet a big one like Change Healthcare case. I think one of them is the usage of deepfake technology. Um, I think it's happened in the US or UK. I forgot the name of the organizations, my guild, but the attacker used deepfake technology in order to impersonate the CEO, and then the CEO, the voice of the CEO, and as well as the video was what do you call was designed to manipulate their vendor, if I'm not mistaken, and then the vendor paid amount of fee because the vendor was being told or was requested by the CEO. I think that's the one uh, quite well-known case. But the other is oftentimes we cannot see it directly, so we need to do the malware analysis. What else? The adware analysis, in order to identify whether this malware or adware utilizing the old techniques, or they use machine learning or AI. I think I hope that my response makes a lot of sense to you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gautam Bhatia. I think it was
Mm.
that's a very interesting question because yeah, we have agreed that now fraudsters have used not just manual technologies, but also how to use the AI to actually, I think impersonation is one of the most common cases that we see in everyday cases now. We don't know whether they might be using it, for example, for besides impersonating. I think I don't know how, but what do you think about machine learning itself? You mentioned about how machine learning can be used for bad things as well, not just for good things. We know that for good things, definitely it would be for us to detect anomalies, and AI will be helping us automate all this, studying the previous data and then to foresee the future data. How about any bad cases about the use of AI and machine learning? Because I think this is a really interesting question.
Yeah, sure. Esther, the utilizations of machine learning, not only AI, usually we see the pattern like the attacker, what do you call, attacker embed that kind of technology um, in malware, in phishing email, for instance. Phishing emails have been one of the most what do you call, most well-known techniques for, I think, uh, for almost three decades. Um, but day in day out, the actor leverage the machine learning techniques and AI techniques into the applications that they develop or they coded in order for the email that they send will not be detected by the phishing or spam tool within the email provider. So um, day in day out, week in week out, this makes a big headache for the technology provider as well because they need to enhance their spam or junk features in order for the phishing email will or should be detected. That's the first example that we have seen flying around for quite a while. And then for the uh, for the other kind of attack, uh, they also leverage the machine learning in order to send the attack or send the uh, malware um, prior to. I mean, they use the machine learning and AI to know the weaknesses and vulnerabilities within the organization systems. And then based on the result generated by this tool, they start to send send the attack because they know already what are the vulnerabilities and what are the flaws that the systems have. So it's easier for the attacker. Simply put, it's easier for the attackers to identify vulnerabilities because with these recent technologies, um, they can identify the vulnerabilities more quickly um, and then more accurate. I can safely say. Mm.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gautam Bhatia. I think it was a very thank you. Those were very interesting cases, and maybe probably I could also add that AI does help the perpetrators themselves to hide themselves, right? Because if we're using, because I've seen how people impersonate other people calling the financial institution, and But then if without the use of AI, they would be able to be traced because their voices would be different from the person. But then when they use AI, they could hide under behind the AI technology itself to impersonate themselves, to what can I say, like hiding their personalities. And so making them harder to be traced, harder to be caught, and to actually hide their identities. So it was a very good point. Thank you so much, Mr. Gautam Bhatir. It was very interesting question, Mr. Nathaniel Webb. Once again, thank you so much for participating and asking the really interesting question. Please let me know if the question has not been thoroughly answered yet, and you can leave another comment on the chat room. Thank you so much once again. And I would like to move to the second question. It's from Mr. Ivan Irawan. He asks, in the context of cybersecurity implementations in Indonesia, how do you see the new emerging technology, such as blockchain, metaverse, will be safe when landed in Indonesia massively? Maybe you would like to address that question, Mr. Gautam.
Okay, so for Indonesia context, without any doubt that the government will play the most important role in educating the users. Very specific, it's on the hand of the ministry, ComDG, and then more importantly, the BSSN, Indonesian National Cryptography and Cyber Agency. Because from these two organizations, the other organizations, whether it's self-regulatory like OJK, BI, Indonesian Central Bank, Indonesian Financial Service Authority, will follow. For instance, the regulations which is released by the Indonesian Financial Service Authority. It's usually heavily influenced by the policy defined by the Ministry of Telecommunications and Informations. And so these two organizations, the Ministry of Communications and Technology and Indonesian Cyber and Cryptography Agency, should have a should play their vital roles, well, particularly for not only for the emerging technology, but also for technology that have been there for quite a while. Very specific for blockchain, I think it's secure, basically. Only the concern is on the smart contract and the apps, the distributed apps. For the metaverse, the content is relatively same, because the blockchain that will store and save the data is, I can say, relatively safe, relatively secure. It's only the Web3 apps that needs to be secured and handled safely. So my response on that question is that to government agency, the Ministry of Communications and Technology, as well as the Crypto and Cybersecurity Agency, they should, they should play their vital roles, because other organizations like BI, OJK, and then LPS, even more local government and central government will follow their footsteps. I think that's my answer, Esther.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gautam Bhatir. We will go to the next question. Mr. Heru Samudra, based on the cases that have happened, whether there are specific signs before a cyber attack occurs. Maybe you would like to address that first?
Um, Wait, just give me a moment. Can you repeat the question, Esther? Sorry, pardon
On
me.
cases that have happened, whether there are are there any specific signs that we could have spotted before a cyber attack occurred?
Oh, okay. So, I think most, if not majority, of the cyber attack um, cannot be cannot be explicitly witnessed, uh, because we try to see uh, we try to see the unseen, right? And so, um, if we'd like to detect or identify cyber attack, we need to identify the threat first, or the abnormalities first, which we can see or witness through um, certain devices and certain software. For instance, we can see a lot of incidents, a lot of threats in your organization's device. One of them is called firewall. And so if you open that device, you will see on a daily basis, maybe 100 or even more cyber cyber threats threatening our organization. But most, if not all, those threats will be what do you call? Will be tackled, will be resolved by this device, the firewall. And then you can also see those threats and those abnormalities not only on firewall but on other device as well, like IDS, IPS, intrusion detection system, intrusion prevention systems. Um, and if your organizations have a recent devices, it's called XDR and NDR. It's an endpoint detection and response. And XDR is extended detection and response. You will see the threat and the abnormalities there. Those devices have been equipped with the recent technologies, with AI and previously machine learning, because the patterns these days are not the same pattern like those early days. So the patterns or the abnormalities are from time to time are very different, and so those devices and those systems need to be equipped with the recent technologies. One of them is ML, machine learning, and then the other one is AI. Um, Antivirus is no longer adequate to prevent or to detect, maybe for virus, yes, but for malware, for um, ransomware, or even for other kind of attacks, it's no longer enough. It's no longer adequate, the antivirus one. And so that's why the organization needs to what do you call, step up, not only deploying firewall and antivirus, but also IPS, IDS, NDS, and XDR. I'm not trying to sell you anything, guys. It's just based on my experience. So yeah, firewall and antivirus is not are not longer are not adequate, and so the organizations need to step up to implement other kind of device. The recent one, like XDS and NDS, particularly to mitigate the risk of ransomware and malware.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gautam
Mm-mm.
Bhatti, for your answer. And I would like to add on to that question, because based on my experience, I was probably, if you can't you this, for example, prohibited network for some reasons because they have not been implementing the softwares that Mr. Gautam Bhatia recommended. So they happened to finally manage to get access to our network. The next thing that we could do is that noticing their activities and stopping their activities before it goes further. So in my experience, there was a cyber fraud case that happened. It happened internationally, so it was between different countries. It was between France, Korea, and Indonesia. And the problem was that the French company and the French and the Korean companies were being hacked by a hacker, which we don't know where they are. And when they were being hacked, their vendor management system were hacked. The companies, the hacker got their vendor data, which means that they knew that who are the vendors of the French company, who are the suppliers of the French company, and which supplier has the highest value of invoice. So they hacked for the purpose of getting the invoice data rather than just hacking for the sake of hacking, but actually to get the invoice data so that they could steal the money basically from the invoice, basically like that. So what happened was that after they hacked both companies' network, the French company and the Korean companies, they found out that actually first the French company. So first the French company, they found out that this Korean company was the one of the suppliers of the French company, which had the highest value of invoice. And what happened was that after they got the invoice data, then they said, okay, let's hack the Korean company's network. And they did. They hacked the Korean company. And what they did was that they hacked their email system. So just like we've mentioned before, impersonating is usually the most common method that fraudsters use. They impersonated the Korean companies and they impersonated the French company. So the French company and the Korean company were both communicating to each other, not knowing that they were actually no longer communicating with each other, but they were communicating with the hacker. So they also did not use any other methods of communication, for example, like phone calls, anything. They were just fully reliant upon the email system to communicate with one another. And the hacker suddenly sent another email to the French company saying, hey, I changed my bank account. So my bank account number is no longer the bank account in Korea, but in Indonesia. So they changed the bank account and they said, okay, let's move this is the new invoice that we have, and please send the money to this bank account, which is in Indonesia. And they did not pre-check the why did they change the invoice. Like again, I think it also highlighted what Mr. Gautama Bhatia mentioned earlier, that human is the weakest link, because at this point, people should have already noticed that something was fishy, because why would a Korean company change their bank account to a bank account in Indonesia rather than in Korea? It just did not make any sense. But instead of making sure again to the Korean company by using any other methods of communication, for example, like phone call or sending a letter or whatever, they actually just trusted the email saying, hey, I changed my bank account, which is a new bank account in Indonesia. So that weakest link happened, and they said, okay, then they sent the money to bank account in Indonesia, only to find out that it was the Korean company never received the money, because the bank account in Indonesia was never owned by the Korean company, although the bank account in Indonesia was opened in the name of the Korean company. So this is also another interesting thing, which also we could have discussed also about the anti-money laundering mechanism in the bank itself. But aside from that, there are signs. If we fail, or our software system has failed to detect the cyber attack has occurred, at least we should have been able to detect the activities that come after that, to know that, to prevent the activities from going further that actually can significantly harm our companies even more, or our customers and our consumers. So there must be signs, and that's what we have to know. What are the signs, which is the activities that, because hackers do not hack us just for the sake of hacking. There are certain activities that they would want to do after that, and that's what we have to spot if we have failed to spot the hacking itself. So I think because of time constraint, maybe we should end our session today. There are still a couple of questions, but maybe I will just close with this. Please feel free to reach out to us. These are our email addresses if you have any further discussions, and if you would like to talk more with us, you are free to reach out to us at these email addresses. But I hope this will not be the last time we meet each other online, whether it's online or offline. I hope we can meet again sometime in the future or in the near future. But we would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude for all of your participation today in today's online coffee talk, because your attendance has made today's event really special, and we are truly honored to have had you join us. Your support and enthusiasm in giving comments, asking questions. There are a lot of questions and comments. A lot of people raised hands, and this kind of enthusiasm has added to this event's success, and we deeply appreciate your contribution. Once again, thank you for your participation and support, and we do look forward to the opportunity to seeing you again in the near future. Once again, thank you so much, and we would like to give back the to the CRMS team or to the MC. Safina, please. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Miss Esther, and thank you, Mr. Gautama, for that insightful discussion. All right, last but not least, let's all take the token of appreciation to both of our speakers. I would like to give a symbolic play forward as well as a group photo session. All right, now, ladies and gentlemen, let us take a photo with this symbolic play. All right, I will give you all the cue so that the committee can take the screenshot. All right. Now for the first picture. 1, 2, 3. All right. Now let's make it less formal and more poses. 1, 2, 3. All right. Thank you so much for the resource speaker. And thank you all who have attending this coffee talk session. And before you all leave, let's all fill in the feedback form on the following QR codes that has been sent by the committee. So here, you can also see it on the chat. Okay. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for attending this coffee talk. Thank you all for the participant. Thank you again for the resource speaker, Mr. Gautama and Miss Esther Rosaline. Thank you all, and see you again on the next event.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Have a nice weekend.